All right, moving in to session 3. Can you see the screen that says developing your downline? Yes, good deal. Keep me honest, y'all, because I can screw this up real fast. All right. Let's see what we got. If you haven't, you need to switch to LRB3 on the Slido code. So take your phone, switch to LRB3 to set you up for this session. Give you just a minute to do that. And I've got to do that here as well. All right. LRB3, here we go. We're going to talk about on discovering influence and influencers. Influence and influencers. Which brings the question, take a look. On your phones. What is an influencer? Take some time, fill out that survey. And you don't have to do a long description, just a brief one. At 11. $26. About another 30 seconds. All right, let's roll on. Here we go. How would you define influence? Influence is the act of effect. To make a positive, negative impact on someone, as someone, something that has sway or impact on something or someone else, an object that changes or affects another in a significant way, someone who encourages or motivates others to do something. These are people others admire or aspire to be. The impact that one has on others, it has a bearing on your decision. When someone or something encourages you to do something or think a certain way, it's often subconscious. A stimulus that changes or drives a particular behavior which would not be present otherwise. someone that has the ability to enforce their will subtly on people or situations, whether negatively or positively, to have an impact on someone's life or actions, the condition of being able to lead others to do what they never knew they wanted to be or do. I like that one. That's good. What a person makes another feel like, good or bad. Respect. The result of an interaction or multiple interactions, having some sort of gravity or weight to your views and opinions that affect other people's decisions. Influence is a force that can change and manipulate those around it. Someone who impacts others, impacting, having an effect on others, being able to persuade others to make decisions a certain way. Anything that changes my thinking. Having or making an impact, something that has an impact can initiate a difference, inspiring others to action. Having the ability to have your actions convince or coerce others into doing things, maybe not coerce, hopefully. Suggestive action, a motivation or motivator to follow certain things. The impact you have on something or the ability to change or alter something in their life. Things people do that cause you to change your actions, having an effect on others, to have an effect on someone. All right. How can you discover who is an influencer? Who people attribute their decisions and actions to. Excellent. An influencer has the capability of persuading many. Lifestyle, willingness to be an example. By looking at or noticing if there is an impact on people and the environment around them, what kind of impact. By determining what changes they've caused. For those who lead and who others look up to. One's reactions to what someone else does or says. Seeing if others change what they would do because of the influencer. List the top 3 people in your social circle you were closest to. That's interesting. Because they're the ones that are influencing you, obviously. Observing their impact on others by their engagement with others and their activities. Someone who leads with action and confidence. See who you follow by figuring out who's popular on campus, on social media. Who do you respect enough to listen to their opinion and follow their leading? Being vigilant, look for what people are gravitating towards. Does that person have people who see them as a role model? Are they in a position of leadership? Technically, everyone can influence those around them. Bam. Some are just better at it than others. No man is an island. Yes, spot on. Reaching out by looking at the followers, by looking at how others behave around them. A person who can move people to action by the way they act and speak. Watch what they say or do. Are they making an impact on someone's life or in the community? Identify or acknowledge anyone who gets people to think differently. Someone who inspires others to do something. Good question. I guess if they have a number of people following them and holding their opinions to the highest regard, then they're an influencer. A person who brings along the suggestive action. If they have followers, who are they impacting? Someone who people want to be like and strive to be by the impact they make on others. Now, I went to the dictionary because I knew you were collegiates and grad students and so forth. And so I figured that that would be a good place to start. So I went to the dictionary. It says influence. Now, you can pronounce it influence, but that sounds like influenza to me, but influence. The capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something, or the effect itself. And secondly, a person or thing with the capacity or power to have an effect on someone or something. So that's a person who has influence. All right? Notice influencer. A person or thing that influences another. And in marketing, especially social marketing, a person with the ability to influence potential buyers of a product or service by promoting or recommending the items on social media. Now, you guys have seen this, and interestingly enough, a recent poll of high school seniors, when asked what they wanted to be, one of the top ranking professions now is to be a Facebook or Instagram personality. Most of that generation was Instagram, but to be a person that's followed by millions. Interesting thing. So I went right away and I said, okay, so if I were going to be a Facebook or Instagram or Twitter influencer, how would I do that? And I found there's all kind of ways. How to become an influencer. Found a website that talks about 7 steps to becoming a social media influencer. For those of you who want to do that, watch this fast. But select your niche, optimize your social media profiles, understand your audience, create and post relevant content, be regular and consistent, engage with your audience, let brands know you're open to collaborations. I would say those are a good place also. You could start with getting your ACF chapter known. However, having said that, I want to talk about a different type of influencer. I want to talk about corporate principles versus kingdom principles. See, oftentimes we try to take corporate principles and we try to put them into our ministry. Trying to run a ministry by corporate principles will always create organizational dissonance. Now, understand there's a difference between structure and principles. We have to have a structure to know how to organize. But the principles that structure is operated with make a difference. Jesus said, "For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Jesus himself did not change the organizational structure of the church when he was here. Rather, he taught a different way of behaving within that. The principles were different. And if you try to run a kingdom ministry by corporate principles, that is trying to get ahead, try to be the best, the biggest, the largest, the most influential, typically you create organizational dissonance. So Jesus introduced kingdom principles. Mark chapter 9, verse 33. After they arrived at Capernaum and settled in the house, Jesus asked his disciples, "What were you discussing out on the road?" We were walking, you guys were talking back there behind me, but they didn't answer because they had been arguing about which of them was the greatest. They were talking about corporate principles. Who's the top? Who's the leader? Who's the head dog? He sat down and called the 12 disciples over to him and said, "Whoever wants to be first must take last place and be the servant of everyone else." Wait a minute. As president, I'm supposed to basically give orders and all you guys are supposed to do them. But Jesus is saying, no, you're going to be a servant leader. It's a different principle. It's turned upside down. Let's go on. A guy named Tim Elmore described what he called the Calcutta paradox. He says humility is magnetic in a leader. When we underspeak with regard to our value, others are drawn toward us and our influence increases. When we overspeak, that is, we're bragging about ourselves and our exploits and what all we do and how great we are and how wonderful the thing we are, others are repelled. When it comes to self-description, leaders know people will fill what is lacking. You underspeak, they're going to go, no, you're too modest. Here's really what's happening, guys. But they're also going to empty what is full. Oh, you're full of yourself. Let me put you in your place. And that's what happens. And he calls this the Calcutta paradox because he based it on Mother Teresa. In spite of the fact that Mother Teresa never called attention to herself, nor did she portray the glamour that Hollywood applauds, people around the globe found her humility very attractive. It's a paradox that for 50 years she served in the slums of Calcutta, yet she was voted the most influential woman in the world for several years. People tend to overspeak about leaders who will only underspeak about themselves. The Calcutta paradox, based on kingdom principles. Psalm 18, verse 25 says, "To the faithful you show yourself faithful. To those with integrity you show integrity. To the pure you show yourself pure, but to the crooked you show yourself shrewd." Notice this, you rescue the humble, but you humiliate the proud. The Lord my God, you light a lamp for me, the Lord my God lights up my darkness. In your strength I can crush an army. With my God I can scale any wall. So ACF Christian leadership needs to be based on kingdom principles that say, I'm going to follow Jesus in his path of humility, and let him basically exalt me. I'm going to let him lift me up. You know, you remember the song we used to sing, humble thyself in the sight of the Lord. Next words, and he will lift you up. That's scripture. That's scripture. If you're trying to lead out of your own strength, if you're trying to lead out of your own, wow, hey guys, look how great I am, and you're leading a ministry, then what typically happens, and I've seen it happen over and over again through my life, and the Lord's even done it to me, because I hate to say this, but there was a time, and sometimes it still creeps up, where I get really proud. Because that's the devil's way of doing it. And it's not like a one and done, I'm done with this forever. I want to be, but it keeps coming back. And so I've got to wait and watch for that ugly, shrewd thing to raise its head. And then I've got to allow that to be submitted back to the Lord and be humbled again. But if you don't, what happens is, you know, I think the saying went something like, pride goes before, you heard that one? Yeah, a fall. And so we want to make sure that we are leading from the place of humility and in Christ's strength, because verse 29 says, in your strength, I can crush an army. All that stuff that's standing against you right now, all those shortcomings you've identified, all that stuff that's in Christ's strength, those things can be demolished. As you pray about those things, as you spend time on those things, he can actually help you bring about that. Okay, so look at overspeaking versus underspeaking, or underspeaking versus overspeaking on your Slido, and let's look at those questions real quick. Notice I'm also making you think a little bit more now. All right, answers starting to come in. That's good. 12. Couple more minutes. About a minute. All right, try to finish up real quick. Gonna move on. All right, let's move on. I'm not going to read all of these, but we're going to pick out some as we go randomly because it would take forever to read all 28 of these. But why do you think some people tend to insist on taking places of honor or seeking words of honor for themselves? Because they haven't truly found joy outside of others. They have learned to live on the praises of people to hide this feeling, emphasis on feelings of insecurity or insignificance, which is not the truth. You matter, be happy with you. Very good. Some cases it can come from an internal depletion of self-worth. They must look outside of themselves in order to feel valuable and our never-ending race towards their final feeling good enough. Lack an understanding of their self-worth. I think you guys are nailing it. They love the feeling of being praised, want status, makes them feel good. They like the attention. They like to feel affirmed, even at the expense of others. Lack of confidence, pride, negative lack or appreciation from parents or caregivers during their formative development. And there is more to be said on that particular topic. That is so true. For self-praise, acknowledgement for their own selfish purposes, not genuinely involved. Here it is. It's in our nature to be prideful. We look for approval from others, and most of the world deals in pride while God deals in humility. Bam. That's it. And so when we have that prideful nature that comes up, that's part of our sinful nature that has to be suppressed, it will always impact, which makes it easier, yes. Human sinful nature needs to be taught to turn off. There it is. It comes natural to be selfish. If you don't believe that, go unplug a pacifier from any kid. Any child, if they're stuck on that pacifier, just unplug them and watch what happens. They begin to yell, scream, and you plug it back in, they're fine. What they're saying is, I want what I want, and I want it now. Accepted by the masses, make themselves feel better. They're insecure. Today's culture teaches us to flaunt our strengths. That is so true. Okay? What, in your opinion, is the difference between underspeaking and a false humility that's merely fishing for compliments? Did you notice the difference there? Sometimes you'll have people that underspeak, but really they're doing it in such a way they're just fishing for compliments. Oh, I'm not that good, really, you guys. The difference is the spirit behind it. Underspeaking is not doing things for the gaze of others. False humility is exactly doing it for others. Sometimes false humility comes in the form of bringing their accomplishments into a conversation where it isn't relevant or wanted in order to downplay them in hopes for validation. Good question. Thank you for being honest. Like, good question. I have no clue. I believe that it has to do with the heart. Someone who has false humility could be doing the same acts of humility. You can usually tell when someone is humble, bragging in the way they speak, sounds less genuine. Underspeaking comes from a more genuine place, acknowledging you're not everything, you have weaknesses, other people may have better ideas than you. They can be the same, but not always. Sometimes people underspeak simply because they're not confident in what they have to bring to the table. False humility occurs more frequently and makes a point of bringing it up. Underspeaking occurs after receiving compliment. Right there. False humility occurs more frequently. Oftentimes when people bring it up, it's the way you handle the compliment. If you're bringing it up, yeah, I try to do this for you. It's more, I'm underspeaking, but I'm trying to get you to bite. On the other hand, if someone brings something up and says, this was amazing, it's awesome, thank you, I'm glad you enjoyed it. If they go on and on and on about, well, it took me a long time and I have, so we all appreciate affirmation. But if we're trying to use that to get more attention, then we're underspeaking, we're basically a false humility. Without God, it's impossible to have true humility. That's true. Underspeaking is selfless, includes integrity. There's no sense of pride. False humility is self-serving. And I think you guys, true surrender to Christ, I think you guys have nailed it. Genuine desire for affirmation, to affirm that we are on the right path. Yes. Difference in the genuineness of humility. You guys have nailed it down. When I was a chaplain at Campion Academy out in Colorado, the president of Union College and one of his art teachers were coming over to actually host a banquet for us and to be the MCs. And I got told by the principal, it's one of those things, they had built 2 rooms on the end of my house. One they had outfitted with a nice queen bed, and the other was with a set of bunk beds for students that got in trouble. They didn't send them home, they sent them to my house. That was exciting because I got to deal with a lot of angry students. But it was also a really cool part of ministry, but it also meant that, well, Pastor Don has extra guest rooms, so when guests come to town, suddenly I get voluntold that we're hosting them. And so I get a call from the principal saying, hey, we're sending the principal, the president of Union College and his art teacher over to stay with you guys overnight or for the weekend. We'll feed them in the cafeteria, but they're going to be staying at your house. They should be here in about an hour. So we very quickly went in. There was a bathroom in between. We cleaned the bathroom up real good. We made sure we always made sure the sheets were clean. After the last one, we just changed them out and had them always ready. So we said, okay, we're ready. But the bunk bed room, we had a whole bunch of my kids' toys. They were about 3 and 5 at the time. And so we kind of had their toys in that room, and we're thinking, do we take them out? Do we put them in? And we didn't have any place else to put them. We just said, okay, we'll just put them in the corner. And I'll never forget what happened. The president of the university walked in, and they rang the doorbell. I opened the door, and he said, hi, I'm John. And so he said, this is Dr. So-and-so, and called the art professor by doctor, even though he was also a PhD, he used, well, I'm John, this is Dr. So-and-so, we're going to be staying with you, I guess. And I said, yeah, here's the rooms right here. Well, he quickly walked in, looked at the really nice guest room with the king size or queen size bed in it, went over, looked at the bunk bedroom, and as the other guy came in, he says, hey, here's your room right here. And he pointed out the guest room with the queen bed. And then he put his stuff in the room with the bunk beds. He said, yeah, you're staying over here. I'm right here. We got a bathroom in between us. This is going to be good. And so the guy just put his stuff in there. And it wasn't until the next afternoon when he went in to say something to him that he saw that the president of the university had been sleeping on our bunk bed. And he was sleeping in the queen bed. And he goes, you should have taken the nice room. He goes, no. You deserve the nice room. You work hard for our university. That's humility. And he underspoke. I was just, never have forgotten that. it's been a lesson for me. What effect do you think an underspeaking leader would have on their team? Creates a more equal community. Motivate the team to go about their work diligently. The example is shown they are doing ultimately for God and not for human applause. Yes, at times difficult principle to internalize. They can push the team to want to be better in terms of spirituality or evangelism. People feel more comfortable with humble leader. Humility makes someone approachable and personable. Positively impact their team. Turn the focus from themselves, how awesome they are, and put it on the real issues. They're saying not as effective, less efficient. I think their team would see them as relatable, sincere, and kind. Little to no positive. The team may not be as organized, or things may not get completed. Understand that we're not saying that they don't function well. They underspeak about their function. In other words, they can function just as efficiently, but they're not bragging about it. That's what we're talking about. So I don't think it would impact their function. Their actions and words inspire people to do more. Underspeaking leaders' words would have more weight, will most likely be taken more seriously. The team would probably be proud of their leader. When you think about this professor, when he went back to Union College, do you think he had more respect for his president or less? I think his respect for his president shot up. And so as we look at this, underspeaking is a way of influencing the rest of the members to actually be that way too. Let's go on. Once you have become an influencer, spend your time influencing the influencers. I quoted a great guy on that one. This guy is profound. So once you've become, and that was from a very humble place, I want you to know that. Once you've become an influencer, spend your time influencing the influencers. Sometimes as a leader, we think we have to be out doing everything, but if you spend your time influencing those who influence others, you have just magnified your influence. You've just leveraged it in a way that allows you to go farther than you could by yourself. So influence your influencers and let them influence their network. Does that make sense? Don't try to be out there influencing everything. Influence simply the influencers that you have to influence as a leader. Does that make sense? Okay, thoughts or questions or whatever, you can put them in the chat. We'll watch for those. In other words, create new influencers or leaders. But how? Thank you for asking. I am so glad you got to that. Here's how. Identify potential leaders. You look for people who look like they want to be involved. Doesn't mean they're a leader yet. They just want to be involved. They want to help. Give them small jobs to see how they do. Communicate clearly so they know expectations and timelines. Make sure you've got it timelined already, and then communicate the expectations and the timelines. Put tracking checkpoints on your calendar on the dates that you're going to check back in. And let them know those dates at the beginning of that so they can see them as helpful, not as a nuisance or you're being over controlling. You say, I'm going to check back in with you on the 17th. On the 17th, hey, I'm just checking back in. How are things going? Call them ahead of the event to make sure they're tracking well. Thank them and praise them for their assistance. With an increased display of responsibility, transfer more authority. Now, as you look at that list, just unmute yourself and tell me what stands out to you or what things you think are helpful and why. Just a few of you, not everybody at once. Okay, Steph, go ahead.
For me, I believe the fourth point is very important because I do try and check in on my officers every once in a while, but I don't have certain days that I do. It's just when I think about them. So lately it's been, I've been focused on other things rather than seeing if they're doing okay, and that kind of backtracks everything that we have planned. So having certain days that I'll check in will definitely help, like keep me on top of my things as well as keeping them on top of it.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to go back through these because I know some of you guys are still writing and everything, but I'm going to ask you a question because I want you to understand the why. Okay? And so just one person or another, or if you want to put it in the chat and praise, yes, we will have the slides later for reference, okay? Just for your ease of mind so you don't have to scramble. But just very quickly, as I get to each question, if you can answer the why for that question, unmute yourself and answer. So why should I identify potential leaders?
Because not everyone is confident enough to put themselves out there, and others may see potential in someone that they don't see in themselves.
Excellent. Yes. Okay. Why should I give them small jobs to see how they do?
This is a good way to assess their abilities.
Yes. And it also limits their failure. In other words, the damage they could do is a lot smaller if they fail. It doesn't impact your organization as deeply. Okay.
And if they have opportunity to be successful at small jobs, it'll give them encouragement to be willing to take on bigger jobs.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Why should I communicate clearly so there are no expectations and timelines?
That things can get done on time.
Say it again, Shelby. Sorry.
That tasks and everything can get done on time.
Yes. Why should I put tracking checkpoints on my calendar and dates to check back in? Stephanie already said that one. It helps you remember to actually check back in. If you put it on your calendar and you're going through your day and all of a sudden you see that, you go, oh, yeah, stop for a moment, send them a text, boom. You don't have to go into long conversations, just touch base. Okay, why should I call them ahead of the event to make sure they're tracking well?
So you don't look crazy when if it does fall through or anything like that, just in case, or just to help them along with anything they may be struggling with.
Exactly, Jalen. If you're calling ahead of time, it gives you a chance to help them succeed. If they're struggling with it, you can come alongside and say, well, here, I can pull in and help you do this. And then you help get them the win, and then you give them the credit for the win. Yeah. Why should I thank them and praise them for their assistance?
I think no one wants to do a thankless job. I've definitely worked thankless jobs before, and it makes you not want to do anything if no one's going to even notice you did anything.
Yes. Why should I, with an increased display of responsibility, transfer more authority?
It gives them, oh, sorry.
Because, well, I think what Stephanie was gonna say, it gives them more, it gives them a chance and more responsibility, and that's kind of how you build leaders. You're given more responsibility and more authority.
Exactly. As they have more transfer, they begin to have more buy-in. The more buy-in they have, the more you can begin to transfer more. And what you do is you begin to ensure your chapter's success and your succession plan. You begin to actually build into them so that you can develop your downline, so to speak. All right, we got to move on because we're running out of time. Here we go. Discussion by offices held. Again, we're going to have these rooms available. Choose the one you want to go to. If you've updated your Zoom. If not, let Betsy know in the chat. Here you go. And there's your thing. We're going to have about 15 minutes for discussion, and then we'll come back together and close things off and have a break for lunch. All right. Best way in your thinking to identify potential leaders. Get people involved, watch how they meet others. More self-confidence, identify a friend with similar interest. Observe and look for potential leaders. Work with those who are investing in the chapter. Find out what people in the group are passionate about. Ask the current leadership who they see as a leader. Observing the group, who's outgoing, consistent, someone who's good at influencing the environment. Find the quiet ones that usually have good ideas. Having desire to involve. Observation, getting to know people. Prior leadership experience helps. Having conversations with individuals. I was trying to find a youth staff for a church one time, and the Lord kind of woke me up with this impression: find people in the foyer after church who are talking to high school kids on their own volition. Nobody's forcing them to. And then I went and talked to them and said, would you like to be a high school team leader? And that's how I got my youth staff. So there's different ways you can do that. What type of jobs would you identify as small jobs? Giving them a small part in organizing an event, like reaching out people, confirming attendance, greeting, setup, cleanup, busy work that helps invest someone in the group, introduce them. Yes, right on. Asking them to moderate social media or Zoom. Let them set up a sign-up sheet or part of a presentation. Making flyers, someone social to get other people's attention. Creatively ideate. Helping with marketing or advertising events, supporting the events, sending out reminders, invites, communicating to the rest of the members. Anything that's slightly more challenging than what they're currently doing, absolutely. You step it up, just notch a little bit at a time. Giving ideas to post on social media, leading out prayer, reading scripture, being a part of leading out worship, Bible study, contacting, communication, assist others. So you guys are onto this whole thing. Yeah, anything, a small job would be anything that gets them more invested and ups the ante for them, and also wouldn't necessarily be fatal to your whole event if it went down. Okay, so that's a small job. Why is clear communication so important? What should communication involve when it comes to new leader? Easy to misunderstand someone's expectations. Yeah, you actually save people's feelings from being hurt. Clear communication, transparency helps form more personal, valuable relationships. So there's no confusion, help us avoid conflicts in the group, consistency. It's key to getting the job done. It eliminates confusion, things get done correctly. A new leader may not know what the position entails, they need help with that. Can make the difference in how smoothly things go. Everybody's made aware of the expectations. Reduces stress for everyone. Now, here's another key. When you're looking at building a downline, communication helps set expectations. Many of you have come into your job role and you go, I don't even know what this does. Anybody relate to that? I don't know what it's supposed to do. So clear communication actually helps with the next person saying, oh, well, if that's what it is, I can do that. Oh, if that's what it is, I don't know if I can do that. Okay, but it gives them something to go off of. The more that I can explain and be clear about when I'm expressing what happens, the easier it is to pass the torch, because people can then look at that and go, yes, I can. Nah, I can't. But it gives them something concrete rather than, well, it's not that bad. It's only a couple times a month. It's really easy. You can do it. Well, what does that mean? And so clarity and communication actually helps that. Let's move on. What would be an advantage of installing calendar checkpoints as well as calling them ahead of the event? We talked about this a little bit before you went into that break. But yes, prevents embarrassment. You're aware of responsibilities. You show your officers that you care about them. Prevents them from being abandoned, and provides reminders for everybody involved, and that's a key. How do you transfer both increased responsibility and authority? How would you define the difference between the two terms? I dropped into 2 or 3 groups, and they were kind of struggling with what is the difference. Let's see what you got. Preparing a leader by giving them a small task before transferring leadership, introducing a leader to the group. Forming relationships, transferring responsibility and authority can be done by giving prospective leaders small tasks and giving them more freedom, control over the tasks as they do them. The two terms work hand in hand. In order to have authority, you just have to have some responsibility. You want to do it incrementally. Start off with small tasks and increase responsibility slowly. Increase responsibility is working towards a leadership position. Increased responsibility could turn into an authorizing role. Now, I put this in here because a lot of people are confused about this, so I want to try to be clear and help you understand. There is a difference between responsibility and authority. We do this poorly in the church oftentimes. We give people responsibility. We elect them to a church office. But then if the main leader doesn't give them authority to do that office, they're stuck with feeling guilty all the time because they can't do it. Well, they're always getting pulled back. Transferring authority says, from the hearing from the main leader down, I'm now transferring this to you. Everybody, you're doing this in the sight of everybody else. You're transferring authority. You're saying so-and-so is now in charge. So they got responsibility already. They've already agreed to do this job. You're now saying, so if you have questions, talk to them. If they can't solve it, then you can both come to me. But what you're doing is you're letting everybody know the spectrum or the scope of their authority. They can do these things. And so you're saying that in everyone's hearing or through an email or whatever, but everyone understands this scope goes back to this person. Now, if you're constantly as a president or vice president pulling that back into yourself, pretty soon everybody goes, well, I got the responsibility, but they don't have no authority. I can't do anything. I'm stuck. So you want to make sure that you transfer both responsibility and authority. So what you do is you let them hear you telling the rest of the group, if you need something when it comes to social media, talk to this person. They're your first stop. If you need something when it comes to the treasury, talk to this person. That's your first stop. You're saying, I am giving them the authority to make these decisions, to work in this arena, and they and I, if there's issues, will solve those issues. But that's the way, and advisors, you can do the same thing for presidents. You give them the authority to work. So responsibility is taking ownership of the task, but authority is in the eyes of everybody else that's looking in. Does that make sense? You see the difference in that? Oftentimes we transfer responsibility, but we don't transfer authority. And some pastors are the worst at that. They'll transfer responsibility, and then they want to make sure they're micromanaging everything. And they don't transfer the authority to say this person is in charge of this particular thing. So, all right, we're going to take a break. It's 12:44. We're going to actually push it. It's supposed to be to 1:30. Do you want to go at 1:30 or do you want to go at 1:45? Do you want a full hour break? You tell me, 45 minutes. We can push everything back. I tell you what, this afternoon is going to be fun. We're going to do the session 4, which is a new view of you. And then the Shark Tank, which we've got a panel of judges coming on. And they're going to be listening to the pitches. We've got 5 different universities that have applied to the Shark Tank. So we'll be listening to those universities and listen to that. And each of the I've given the authority to each of the judges to have 1,000 credits each for each university they can spend. So just like on Shark Tank, they'll say, well, I'll invest, $1,500, I'll invest $1,000, I'll invest $15,000. They've got 1,000 credits to spend on you. So you've got to do your best to convince them to turn loose of those. And depending on how many points you end up with at the end of the round will depend on the percentage that you get of what you're asking for. So, should be fun, should be exciting. We're going to have a great time this afternoon. Let's go have some lunch, and we'll come back at 1:45. All right, so 1:45, we'll start it again with session 4, and then we'll go from that right into the Shark Tank after we have a little reorientation time. We'll see you back at 1:45. Blessings.